Well, hopefully the change-up of the album cover is a signal to a change-up of the music and the lyrics. So, we'll see if this is more Old Man Yells at Clouds or not.
But we can sit back and taste the spoils of war.
Proxy by The Tangent. So The Tangent is a UK retro prog band, and they're kind of like, for me, I really fell in love with their work in the 2006-2008 era of In a Place of a Q and Not As Good As the Book. These two albums really introduced me to what The Tangent were, and as I said, I fell in love with these two albums. I think that they are a really great staple of like retro prog and what retro prog can offer. Within the past two albums of The Tangent, Spark in the Ether, Music That Died Alone Volume 2, and The Slow Rust of Forgotten Machinery, these two albums I did not like at all. I thought they were retreading past grounds, and this kind of ushers in one of my main concerns about The Tangent, because The Tangent are either really good within A Place in the Queue, Not As Good As the Book, and even Le Sac de Travail. Like, I love Le Sac de Travail. When Andy is not tackling this big raging against the current climate in some way, shape, or form, and really kind of tackling a really crystal clear concept, such as The Place in the Queue, or Le Trac de Travail, or Le Trac de Travail, I can't pronounce, I'm sorry. He produces such great works of art, and with Proxy, I'm seeing kind of the two identities that make up The Tangent, and I'm not quite sure which way it was going to go. So when it dropped finally, I can say that it's a good marriage between the two. We still have a lot of that Old Man Yells at Clouds, but we also have, and I think the biggest word that I can use within this album that was lacking within the past two is fun. There are some great and enjoyable pieces on here that capture an essence of fun. And the album is blissfully shorter than the other two. And it might be one of the shorter albums as well, which is probably one of the biggest advantages of this album over some of the other ones. Proxy does a great way of opening it up, showcasing what we're in for. It takes its time with the lyrics, and I think this is probably the best way to present the music here. We've got the really heavy synthesizers, like really present on here, kind of laying not only the atmosphere, but also the main groundwork, as well as the leading instrument on there, which is pretty standard for The Tangent. The Tangent is a pretty synth and keyboard focused band. I like the bass line that's on here. That's very reminiscent of like a Chris Squire or a Mike Rutherford. And the drumming is pretty serviceable. And the interplay that we have within all the band members as well is very, very on point on this case. And the actual concept of Proxy is something that I'm not surprised that they tackled. It's something that Muse tackled within Drones, and I feel like Muse probably did a little bit better in that concept. This one is the whole, you know, we'll kill everybody by proxy, we'll just, you know, send in our troops and have them do all the fighting in that kind of a sense. And I feel like they could have probably taken this concept and played with it a little bit more, because it does come up in The Adult Lie, or it might even be a case of The Misplaced Optimism, where he's saying, you know, all of this is a proxy, like my musicianship is just a proxy for what you're getting. And I feel like they could have played with this concept of the proxy a little bit more than they did on this album, because it's a brilliant idea to play with. And I'm just surprised that they didn't play with it a little bit more within this album and made it like a full-on concept album, instead of just having it to be the basis for everything to kind of float around and gradually come by and sweep under. So yeah, Proxy is a great song. It is a little bit on the long side, but it never really overstays its welcome like some of the longer tracks that The Tangent has put out. Moving from there, we go on to the melting Androlism Skies, the second track. I'm not even going to try to repronounce that one. This one is a great instrumental piece. It goes through a lot of different styles, and this is another reason why I really fell in love with The Tangent. We have a lot of the Spanish guitars coming in when the guitars do finally come in. There's a lot of ebb and flow within the music. The song never really sits still. We have a lot of that driving force, and it's the energy that brings it through it. I think that's what's fueling the fun, is the energy that's brought to the band. These don't feel like older musicians that are just kind of here to make a stance and then not really know what to do else. This one feels like they're driven with some energy. They're driven to something. The Case of the Misplaced Optimism bleeds right into the Adulthood Lie. It's the longest track at just over 16 minutes. Oh wait, no. Now that I'm looking at it, it looks like the Proxy is the longest track at 16:07, and the Adult Lie is 16:05. I sit corrected. I'm going to leave that in there. So I like how these two tracks blend into one another, creating about 22 minutes worth of standout music, and it would essentially take up a full album side in my idea of how I like to structure an album in my mind. And these two tracks are probably my favorite moments on the track. The drive that's in this, we have a lot more of a heavy hook going on there. My favorite piece is like that really driving effect with the bass line that we have on there. Very heavy, and this is something that isn't necessarily new to the retro prog, but it is kind of new to the Tangent in this case. I love within the Adult Lie that theme that's come back to, and this is where the band really likes to like build up their songs to just kind of play within that peak. And then Supper's Off ends the album. I don't know, like I don't want to say it's the weakest track because there's no real weak tracks on here, but I do like what's captured on this in terms of how the song is presented. It's very heavy, it's very driven. I like the music that's played in here, and Andy comes on and kind of like talks for the first little bit, like a sing talk. All these things that are just kind of spouted out, almost like this. Again, this is probably the highest of Old Man Yells at Clouds that any of the tracks have on here, but it does have that little bit of fun that's sprinkled throughout it. And it does a really good way of closing the album off. So, I mean, that's the album, and I was pleasantly surprised. I do think that they needed to play a little bit more within the concept of Proxy, and I feel like there was never really that gushing that I felt with a lot of the past works within Not As Good As the Book or A Place in the Queue. There wasn't that like moment that like the music just hit really, really hard. There were a lot of really great moments, but never that oomph moment that I was kind of waiting for now that I got myself really excited about the album. So overall, this is a great treat, one that I would highly recommend if you're a fan of the Tangent or retro prog, and I would honestly say download this album. This is a great album to have in your collection. They've definitely put out a lot better, but they've also put out a lot worse. So this is a great way to start if you're interested in checking out the Tangent. So that's about it for me. What did you guys think of Proxy by the Tangent? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, peace out.